Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching Newsnight on DD India, your primetime destination for news and bespoke analysis. It's good to see you again. Right, on the show tonight, all the latest news about India's ongoing fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Also on the show, 12th May is International Nurses Day. And we at DD India salute the nurses on the front line of the global fight against the coronavirus. And at least 53 killed as violence spirals between Israelis and Palestinians living in Gaza. All that and much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. India makes a steady progress in its fight against COVID-19. Active caseload declines for the second consecutive day. A decline of 11,122 over the last 24 hours. The number of recoveries now outnumbers new cases. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan holds a high-level meeting with the health ministers of 8 states and union territories, discusses about COVID-19 management and vaccine delivery, says states should ensure that the rate of decline of new COVID cases is maintained. Nearly $44 million to be released from the PM CARES Fund for procurement of 150,000 oxygen systems developed by the DRDO. The OxyCare system reduces workload and exposure of frontline workers by eliminating the need of routine measurement and manual adjustments of oxygen flow. Indian Railways ferries 396 tankers containing 6,260 metric tons of oxygen. So far, 100 Oxygen Express trains complete journey. The INS Tarkash brings 2 liquid cryogenic containers and 230 cylinders from Qatar to Mumbai. Vaccination campaign continues in full swing. More than 175 million vaccine doses administered so far. A team of experts recommends second and third phase of clinical trials of Covaxin vaccine for children between the ages of 2 and 18. International assistance continues to pour in. Relief supplies arrive from Oman, South Korea and Japan. More than 9,000 oxygen containers, over 7,000 cylinders and 19 generation plants dispatched to the states and union territories. Generators sent from the United Kingdom reach Assam. Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and Haryana take steps to contain the spread of the virus in rural areas. Madhya Pradesh issues instructions to officials on reports of black fungus. Assam issues a revised SOP for curfew in the state. Cabinet approves production-linked incentive scheme called the National Program on Advanced Chemistry Cell Battery Storage. It aims to achieve a manufacturing capacity of 50 gigawatt-hour of ACC and 5 gigawatt-hour of niche ACC with an outlay of $2.47 billion. And death toll from the ongoing Israeli attack in the Gaza Strip rises to 53, including 14 children, with 320 people injured. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared a state of emergency in Lod City amid escalating tensions between Israelis and Palestinians. All right, then let's get started. Our cover story tonight is again on India's fight against the deadly second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. The number of new infections is steadily declining in some parts of the country. Meanwhile, Railways, Navy and Air Force are all continuing to ferry oxygen supplies to the needy across the length and breadth of the country. In the meantime, the PM CARES Fund has okayed the procurement of 150,000 units of an oxygen supply system developed by India's premier defense R&D organization, the DRDO, that's the Defense Research and Development Organization. In another development, a team of experts have recommended India's wholly indigenous vaccine, the Covaxin, for the phases 2 and 3 of clinical trials on children and adolescents between the ages of 2 and 18.
According to Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, India's active caseload declines for the second consecutive day. New recoveries also outnumber daily new COVID cases for the second consecutive day. 3,55,338 recoveries were registered in the last 24 hours. India's total active caseload has dipped to 37,04,099. A net decline of 11,122 cases is recorded in the active caseload in the last 24 hours. Amid the reduction in the number of new cases, Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan held a meeting with the health ministers of 8 states to discuss the rise in corona infection and steps being taken to control the surge. COVID management and vaccination were also discussed. Highlighting the declining cases of infection, the health minister said that this trend has to be maintained.
पिछले 24 घंटे में देश में लगभग 3,48,421 कोविड के केसेस रिपोर्ट हुए हैं, लेकिन इसी के साथ साथ हम सब के लिए ये भी संतोष की बात है कि 3,55,338 केसेस जो कि होने वाले केसेस से संख्या ज़्यादा है, इतने रिकवर होकर सकुशल घर भी लौटे हैं। इस पेस को बराबर हमें मेंटेन करना है ताकि धीरे धीरे हमारे जो एक्टिव केसेस की संख्या वो हर रोज पिछले दिन से कम होती जाए।
The health minister also spoke of vaccinations and said that now 18 to 44 years old people are also being vaccinated.
आज तक देश में 17,52,35,991 डोजेस आज सुबह तक देशवासियों को दी जा चुकी थी और पिछले 24 घंटे में भी 24,46,674 लोगों को ये डोजेस दी गई। हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स की जो प्रक्रिया 16 जनवरी को प्रारंभ हुई थी, उस कैटेगरी में अब तक 95,82,449 हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स को फर्स्ट डोज और 65,39,376 लोगों को सेकेंड डोज।
The efforts of the government are also continuing. Efforts are on for the availability of oxygen. PM CARES Fund approves procurement of 1.5 lakh unit of SpO2-based oxygen supply system developed by DRDO. The fund has accorded sanction for procurement of 1,50,000 units of OxyCare system developed by DRDO at a cost of 322.5 crore rupees. OxyCare is an SpO2-based oxygen supply system which regulates the oxygen being administered to patients based on the sensed SpO2 levels. Under this sanction, 1 lakh manual and 50,000 automatic OxyCare systems along with non-rebreather masks are being procured. These OxyCare systems can be used at homes, quarantine centers, COVID-19 care centers and hospitals. Railways continues its efforts to augment oxygen supply through Oxygen Express. The 100th Oxygen Express completed its delivery. So far, 6,260 metric tons of oxygen in more than 396 tankers have been delivered by 100 Oxygen Expresses. On Tuesday, Oxygen Expresses delivered nearly 800 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen to the nation. Oxygen relief by Oxygen Expresses has reached Uttarakhand, Karnataka, Maharashtra, MP, Haryana, Telangana, Rajasthan, Delhi and Uttar Pradesh. First Oxygen Express for Dehradun and Pune reached on Tuesday night with 120 metric tons and 55 metric tons of medical oxygen respectively. Apart from this, the Indian Air Force is also continuing its effort to transport oxygen and other medical equipments. An AIF C-17 Globemaster airlifted 35 tons of COVID-19 medical supplies from Frankfurt, Germany to Mumbai. It landed at Frankfurt Airport after a 12-hour flight. Thanks to quick turnaround and loading, the aircraft departed from Mumbai Airport on and reached after about 10 hours of flying. The Indian Navy is also doing its bit as part of ongoing COVID-19 relief operation. Samudra Setu 2 INS Tarkash with 2 liquid medical oxygen cryogenic containers filled with 20 metric ton each and 230 oxygen cylinders arrived at Mumbai on Wednesday. The oxygen concentrators were facilitated by the French mission as part of Oxygen Solidarity Bridge, and oxygen cylinders were gifted by Indian diaspora in Qatar. The consignment was handed over to Civil Administration, Maharashtra. In some good news, Bharat Biotech's COVID-19 vaccine Covaxin has been recommended by an expert panel for phase 2 and 3 clinical trials on children from 2 to 18 years. The trials will take place in 525 subjects at various sites including AIIMS, Delhi, AIIMS Patna and Mediterranean Institute of Medical Sciences, Nagpur. If the test results are favourable, further action will be taken on this and the path for vaccination of children will be cleared. Union government is also taking steps to ramp up availability of amphotericin B to fight mucormycosis. There has been a sudden increase in demand from some states for the medicine. The centre is in touch with manufacturers to ramp up production of the drug. The supply is expected to improve with extra imports of this drug and an increase in its production domestically. Meanwhile, the Union Health Ministry has said that media reports have covered the news of classifying B.1.617 as variant of global concern and termed the B.1617 variant of the coronavirus as an Indian variant, even though it has not been used in the WHO report. World Health Organization has not associated the term Indian variant with the B.1617 variant of the coronavirus in its 32-page document. In its fight against the pandemic, global aid continues to pour in for India. Oman joined the nation sending support to India by providing 30 oxygen concentrators, 100 oxygen cylinders, 36 ventilators, 10 SpO2 monitors, 1,000 tocilizumab for infusion, along with other medical equipments to fight COVID-19. South Korea's flight equipped with medical aid reached Delhi airport on Wednesday morning with 200 oxygen concentrators, 150 negative pressure carriers, along with other medical equipments. Japan has also initiated the delivery of consignment from its country. All equipments received in the form of global aid are being distributed to various states and union territories in the country. Cumulatively, 9,284 oxygen concentrators, 7,033 oxygen cylinders, 19 oxygen generation plants, 5,933 ventilators and 3.44 lakh remdesivir vials have been received through road and air. On 11th of May, major medical equipments were received from UK, Egypt, Kuwait and South Korea. These included 80 oxygen concentrators, 1,590 oxygen cylinders and 20 ventilators. To ensure streamlined delivery and immediate allocation of all received resources to various states and union territories, the Union Health Ministry has set up a dedicated cell for regular comprehensive monitoring of the entire process. With this, a four-way approach is being followed in order to ensure adequate allocation to all states and union territories in its fight against the pandemic. With inputs from Sudhir, Nandita, Rajesh, Nitendru, Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, let's now bring you up to date on the COVID-19 situation in the states and union territories across India. For instance, Uttar Pradesh has reported a decline in new infections. And in the national capital, Delhi, the strict lockdown is delivering results. The positivity rate is steadily decreasing in Delhi. The next report also tells you about the Good Samaritans who have come forward to volunteer. Take a look.
The war of states against COVID-19 continues with full force. States are making all-out efforts to break the chain of fast-surging COVID-19 infections across the country. Most of the country is under a strict lockdown or corona curfew, and these tough measures are paying off, with 18 states and union territories witnessing a decrease in new cases of infections. Talking first of the most populous state, Uttar Pradesh, it has been reporting a declining trend in fresh infections. Recovery rate in the state is also increasing while new cases are steadily decreasing every day. In the last 24 hours, 18,125 new coronavirus cases have been confirmed in the state, whereas 26,712 people have recovered and been discharged during the same period. All necessary steps are being taken to improve the supply of life-saving liquid medical oxygen in the state.
17,000 कंसंट्रेटर हैं प्रदेश में, 855 जो हैं वो कम्युनिटी हेल्थ सेंटर हैं, सामुदायिक स्वास्थ्य केंद्र हैं। प्रत्येक सामुदायिक स्वास्थ्य केंद्रों में 20-20 बेड का ऑक्सीजन युक्त जो है बेड की एक सुविधा सृजित की जा रही है।
Government of Uttar Pradesh is arranging increasing the strength of beds in different hospitals. 115 beds have been added in government hospitals in the last 24 hours. 250 ICU beds arranged in DRDO hospital in Varanasi and 100 beds of ICU in HAL hospital in Hutch House, Lucknow. Deputy Chief Minister Keshav Prasad Maurya gave 80 ventilators to Swaroop Rani Hospital in Prayagraj.
80 की संख्या में वेंटिलेटर सुपुर्द किए जा रहे हैं, सौंपे जा रहे हैं और तमाम ऐसी ज़रूरतें हैं जो प्रस्तावित हैं और भी बहुत कुछ किया जाना है और बहुत कुछ करेंगे।
In Madhya Pradesh, curfew continues in all the districts. The state government is also preparing to tackle post-coronavirus diseases. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan directed officials regarding black fungus disease in the state. He laid emphasis on ensuring timely treatment according to ICMR guidelines.
ये ब्लैक फंगस के संक्रमण की घटना सामने आ रही है और वो बहुत भयानक है और अभी तक 50 रोगियों की पुष्टि अब तक हुई है। पूरे इलाज का प्रोटोकॉल जारी किया जाए।
Talking about Delhi, the effect of a strict lockdown is visible in the national capital. Positivity rate is steadily decreasing. Necessary steps are being taken to treat COVID-19 patients. An 80-bedded COVID care center has started in Terapan Bhavan in Chhatarpur in South Delhi. It will soon be increased to 200 beds. IIM, IIT, AIMS alumni have played significant role in establishing this center.
इसके अंदर सारी फैसिलिटी हैं, मेडिसिन, फूड, ऑक्सीजन कंसंट्रेटर एंड ऑक्सीजन, सारी फैसिलिटी अवेलेबल है। बाईपैप भी हमारे पास अवेलेबल हैं।
Another 500-bedded ICU center for corona patient at Delhi's Ramlila Maidan also started on Wednesday. It is attached to LNJP hospital in Delhi. Haryana government is also taking all steps to control the spread of coronavirus in the state. 62% cases in the state is coming from urban areas, while 38% from the village. The state government has formed teams to test everyone in the villages.
हमने गांव में ये बीमारी ना फैले, इसके लिए ठीकरी पैरा के आदेश जारी किए हैं और घर घर जाके सबके टेस्ट करने के लिए भी हमने टीमें गठित कर दी। जो बड़े गांव हैं या हॉटस्पॉट हैं वहाँ पर कोरोना केयर सेंटर हम खोलने जा रहे हैं।
In Rajasthan, there are more than 2 lakh active cases. Villagers are witnessing high rates of infection of coronavirus. The government is taking concrete steps to control the fast surging infection in villages. Several teams are conducting surveys in villages to find out the level of infection and separating containment zone to deal it in a scientific way.
सरकार ने घर घर सर्वे टीमें बनाकर घर घर सर्वे करने का काम कर रही है, दवाई की किट बांट रही है और उसमें से हाईलाइट केसेस कितने हैं, सिम्टोमेटिक केसेस कितने हैं, उनको आइडेंटिफाई किया जा रहा है।
In Assam, new SOPs have been released for corona curfew. The curfew will be in place from 2 p.m. in urban and semi-urban areas. Curfew timings across Assam have been extended. These SOPs will remain enforced for 15 days starting Thursday 5 a.m. in the urban and semi-urban areas of Assam. Moreover, all government and private offices would remain closed for the next 15 days. All religious places will remain closed for the next 15 days. All marketplaces will close their shutters by 1 p.m. All weekly markets will also remain closed for the next 15 days. Stern action would be initiated against violators. A maximum of 10 persons have been allowed for weddings. Assam DGP said anyone found organizing functions during this period would be charged with attempt to murder case added. Buses have been allowed to operate with only 30% passengers. Pillion riding has been banned according to the new SOPs. However, women and children pillion rider have been allowed. In Telangana, a 10-day lockdown has been imposed by the government starting 12th of May. However, daily relaxations have been allowed from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. Meanwhile, the Andhra Pradesh government took a stock of oxygen supply, hospital beds and vaccination process, reviewing the situation of COVID-19. In Goa, the state government has ordered an inquiry into the death of 26 patients at the Goa Medical College and Hospital. On Tuesday, Goa Chief Minister Pramod Sawant had visited the hospital and had asked the authorities to streamline the availability of oxygen to patients.
There is short supply of oxygen in the state. Supply was interrupted between 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. this morning, which resulted in several deaths. I have ordered a high-level inquiry in the matter.
In Jammu and Kashmir, curfew-like restrictions have been imposed. However, essential services will remain in operation. The locals of the valley have expressed their satisfaction welcoming the restriction in Jammu and Kashmir.
आज गवर्नमेंट ने बिल्कुल कंप्लीट बंद ही किया है तो ये मुझे लग रहा है बहुत अच्छा स्टेप है गवर्नमेंट का.
Despite extended lockdown in Maharashtra, Mumbai's Bhindi Bazaar witnessed a crowd of last-minute shoppers ahead of the festival of Eid. Uttar Pradesh Firozabad district also witnessed similar scenes with crowded markets. People were seen flouting COVID-19 protocols in these areas. Amid all this, the vaccination process is in full swing across the country. A total of 17,52,35,991 vaccine doses have been administered till date. More than 30 lakh beneficiaries of age group 18 to 44 years of age have been vaccinated so far. Around 4,74,629 beneficiaries of age group 18 to 44 received their first jab on Tuesday. In Mumbai, many film stars of age group 18 to 44 years have taken their first jab, while in Karnataka's Shimoga, journalists are taking their first jab at respective centres. On the other hand, the state of Uttar Pradesh is leading in administering the maximum number of vaccines to beneficiaries across the state. Amid the pandemic, many good Samaritans are also coming forward as volunteers. In Chennai's Annanagar, a mosque has been turned into a quarantine centre. Patients who've recovered from the virus can isolate themselves at the masjid. Many NGOs and private companies are coming forward to lend support to the government in Karnataka. An initiative, O2 for India, to provide oxygen concentrators free of cost through the Ola app for home-isolated COVID-19 patients in partnership with the Ola Foundation and Give India Foundation was launched by the Deputy CM of the state in Bengaluru. To begin with, this initiative is being implemented in Malleshwaram and Koramangala and would be expanded to cover the entire city and all the places where Ola is operating. The concentrators will be given only for those whose oxygen saturation is below 94. With this, the efforts are in full swing to contain the spread of the virus across the country. Bureau Report, DD India.
Right, time now for our In Focus segment, in which we are discussing about India's active caseload declines for the second consecutive day. Joining me are two very special guests, Dr. Sujit Kumar Singh, Director, National Centre for Disease Control, New Delhi, and Dr. Babatosh Bishwas, Member, COVID-19 National Task Force and former Vice Chancellor of the West Bengal University of Health Sciences, Kolkata. Dr. Singh and Dr. Bishwas, welcome to Newsnight. Dr. Singh, if I can start with you, the numbers, the latest numbers suggest and indicate that the active caseload is declining for the second consecutive day and the number of recoveries are outnumbering the new infections. Now, for the benefit of viewers who are not familiar with these technical terms, would you make them understand what the numbers say and what do they mean for India's ongoing fight against this pandemic? Well, I'm afraid we have some technical audio glitches in that connection with you, Dr. Singh. We'll come back to you momentarily. But if Dr. Bishwas can hear me. Yeah, Dr. Singh,
Yes.
were you saying something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
please
you hear
carry
me?
on.
Okay, so I was just trying to impress upon
Yeah.
that the active cases which are currently around 37 lakhs, and what we see the comparison between the new cases and the recovery.
Right.
The recovered cases now have surpassed the daily new cases. So that daily new cases recovery definitely indicates that there is a declining trend
Okay.
in the surge which we are currently observing. But having said that, what is more important is the current load on our health system. I think that 37 lakh active cases distributed across the states and across the districts which are not having that efficient infrastructure are definitely a cause of concern. But here I will just mention one more point.
Sure.
That because India is a big country and the states have got wide diversity. So in one state, the number of cases might be declining or stabilizing, like in Maharashtra, like what we are seeing currently in Delhi. But on the other hand, we are finding some kind of fluctuations as rising trend in many other states. So we have to wait for some time, then to be rather a little bit happy about this particular situation.
Indeed. Dr. Bishwas, as a member of the COVID-19 National Task Force, if I were to ask you, what are the numbers saying to you as a professional about how the tier 2, tier 3 towns are faring insofar as the spread of the virus is concerned, and how are they doing well or not as compared to the metropolitan cities across the length and breadth of the country? Because I'm told that the semi-urban areas and rural areas are now the biggest challenge facing the country today.
You are absolutely right. What we had earlier, metropolitan cities were more affected in the first wave. But during the second phase, which is a major headache of all of us, that tier 2 and tier 3 cities, including rural areas, they are getting grossly infected. And since we have a very, very vast population, crossing almost 130 crores, 135 crores, so very large number of our population residing in tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities and rural areas have got infected. And one more alarming thing, this second wave is definitely putting us in a lot of trouble, and probably in couple of weeks, maybe we'll be facing third wave. Another important area is pediatric population. It was thought that pediatric population have not been infected and they will not be under the purview of this disease, but it is now recognized that alarming number of pediatric population may get involved in third wave. So our challenges are to take care of our entire population, starting from cities to small cities and villages, as well as people of all ages. Initial thought was elderly population, senior citizens beyond 60, especially those who have comorbids like lung disease, diabetes, they were thought to be in more danger. But later on it has been observed that including younger people, that is between 18 to 44, that group who are very, very active, working outside home, they are getting grossly infected. If you consider total number, as has been discussed just now, that number during 2 days has come down to some extent, but this is not enough. Issues are how to protect our entire population. Since this virus disease doesn't have any specific treatment, so we have to prevent disease. So to prevent the disease, we should have enough vaccination for the entire population. Entire population or a large chunk of this need to be vaccinated to get to the disease. This is in one arm. In another arm, the treatment should be continued, though not specific drug is available, but then major requirement for all seriously ill patients and moderate ill patients is oxygen. So our responsibility is to assure that oxygen is supplied, oxygen is available to all the hospitals and all the ailing patients. Let me add a couple of points here.
Sure.
The oxygen supply needs a couple of things. One is you should have enough production in the country. There should be adequate arrangement of transport and reaching the oxygen to the hospitals, then to have adequate the eye so that the oxygen monitoring, that is audit system must be perfect, and we should have adequate planning that what number of patients we are going to have in near future and what should be our requirement. If we divide oxygen requirement, a group of patients are mildly or moderately symptomatic. They may be managed with nasal oxygen or oxygen mask where you don't need high concentration of oxygen.
Right.
For those patients, we can manage with oxygen concentrator. These are small machines which can extract oxygen from atmospheric air, and that should be enough for maintaining those patients who are not very serious. But a good number of patients are seriously ill. They need critical care unit, that is ICU, I2 support, as well as ventilation. For that, you need continuous supply of large volume of oxygen.
Okay.
This can be assured from the pipeline in the hospitals, which are supported either by jumbo cylinders or with liquid compressed oxygen gas available supplied in the hospital. Currently, you must know that for giving permission to a medical college, government has sent a guideline that all new medical colleges should have their own oxygen generation plant, and that is the bottom line. Because today what we find, they say a small hospital or a moderate hospital who had requirement, for example, of say 500 liters oxygen per day. This is just an example. If the requirement becomes twice, you can manage. But if it becomes 10 times, 15 times, all calculations fail. For that, you should have preparedness. Now we have
fair point.
Preparedness means what I mean. Now we have faced the second phase, and our clinicians and scientists are apprehending that we are probably going to get third phase, and pediatric population is going to be infected largely.
I see.
So when we have got information couple of weeks ahead, we must be, prepared. The preparedness must be there. That will help us to avoid.
Right. So as Dr. Biswas, you are suggesting, as you said in your intervention there, that the next challenge or hurdle is to do something to inoculate the children. As you mentioned, the pediatric cases are on the rise, and that we need to address that on a war footing. At the same time, coming to you, Dr. Singh, now there are reports, how serious are these reports of black fungus, especially in some states in central India? Should people be worried at all? Is there a remedy for that going forward as well?
I think government has taken note of this particular rising trend of the fungal infections, particularly following the strong corticosteroid therapy.
Right.
Because steroid therapy is definitely a game changer as far as management of the 7-day or the second week illness is concerned. So that particular thing has given rise to some kind of concerns. This is being looked after by an expert group, and the drugs dealing with the fungal infection like amphotericin B has been in the eyes of the government, and they are planning that this particular government drug should be carefully used, production should be ramped up, and also if guidelines should be and treatment protocol should be issued. But yes, all said and done, I think we need as of now a little bit more evidence to have a conclusive proof that this particular thing is as a result of this. So we have to somewhere depend on the gross or perfect scientific evidence so as to say that this particular illness is directly related to that.
Right. Dr. Singh, also very quickly, at the moment as we speak, we have 2 vaccines, Covishield and Covaxin, for inoculation the Indian citizens across the length and breadth of the country. But talking about children and adolescents between the ages of 2 and 18, we are told that Covaxin will undergo clinical trials in phases 2 and 3 going forward. Would there be enough vaccines to meet that section or segment of population as well, given the fact that the 18 to 44-year-olds are still getting vaccinated?
No, I think you have raised a very, very pertinent point. And because as Dr. Biswas was just mentioning that there is a danger of higher rate of infection among the pediatric population or the population which is less than 18, and for which as of now the current recommendations do not permit the vaccination of less than 18 years of age. So there has to be a clinical trial, and once the trial proves conclusively that this is safe, this is not having side effects, and the efficacy is also good, then only we can go for the recommending in the pediatric age group. But because this is the age group which will get some kind of more impact because the susceptible population is more. And yes, we have a lot of variants also circulating. These are some of the factors which give some kind of apprehension among the scientists that there could be a third wave. But having said that, I think we need to work strongly on the current interventions, particularly non-pharmaceutical interventions, and see to it that our infection in the community, overall infection load, is suppressed to a greater extent, so that we are well prepared before we say such kind of things.
Absolutely. On that note, Dr. Sujit Kumar Singh and Dr. Bhabatosh Bishwas, thank you so much for making time for us here on Newsnight. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Right, and shifting focus to the other news we are tracking here on Newsnight tonight. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting on Wednesday to review the availability and supply of oxygen and medicines. The government is actively monitoring the supply of drugs being used in the management of COVID-19 as well as mucormycosis. Ministries are in regular touch with the manufacturers to enhance production and extend all kind of help needed. The Prime Minister was also informed about the current production and stock of APIs for each such drug. Now, states are being provided medicines in good quantities. Production of all drugs, including remdesivir, has been ramped up significantly in the last few weeks. The Prime Minister said India has a very vibrant pharma sector, and the government's continued close coordination with them will ensure proper availability of all medicines. And supply of oxygen is now more than 3 times the supply during the peak of the first wave. Now, the PM was briefed about the operations of oxygen rail and sorties by the Air Force planes. He was also informed about the status of procurement of oxygen concentrators, cylinders, as well as the status of the PSA plants being installed across the country. He remarked that states should be asked to operationalize ventilators in a time-bound manner and resolve technical and training issues with the help of the manufacturers. Meanwhile, the JBS Civil Hospital in Assam's Kajalgaon in Chirang received foreign aid from the UK in the form of an oxygen generation plant. Now, the 16-ton oxygen generation plant reached Guwahati on Wednesday with assistance from the National Disaster Response Force personnel. It's the first oxygen generation plant in this hospital. It's capable of filling 100 cylinders in a day. The Principal Health Secretary of Assam, Anurag Goyal, said that as a part of the COVID-19 preparedness, the oxygen plant will further strengthen the oxygen capacity. 2 other plants have been allocated to Satellite Hospital JLN Medical College, Ajmer, and Emergency Building SRG Hospital at Jhalawar in Rajasthan. Now, 12th May is International Nurses Day. On this day, the world celebrates the birth anniversary of Florence Nightingale, who is widely regarded as the founder of modern nursing. The day holds a significance this year as the world fights the coronavirus, which has infected more than 160 million people across the world. And Prime Minister Modi thanked the hard-working nursing staff on the occasion. And taking to Twitter, he said, I quote him here, International Nurses Day is a day to express gratitude to the hard-working nursing staff who is at the forefront of fighting COVID-19. Their sense of duty, compassion and commitment towards a healthy India is exemplary, unquote.
Every year, 12th of May is observed as International Nurses Day to honor nurses. The International Council of Nurses celebrated the day for the first time in 1965 and was chosen to celebrate the day as it is the birth anniversary of Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing in the year 1974. On the occasion of International Nurses Day, Major General Soral Ghoshal, Additional DJ Military Nursing Service, took this opportunity to compliment each and every nurse contributing towards healthcare globally.
During vulnerable in moments like this, it is nursing officers who are holding the responsibility, accountability for providing reassurance to the patients and networking between the patient's needs and all other departments in the hospital.
This year, the theme for the International Nurses Day is Nurses, a Voice to Lead, a Vision for Future Healthcare that emphasizes on the need for nursing innovation and empowering nursing workforce for tackling such global health crises in future in this context. As the entire world is grappling with the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, nurses play a pivotal role in achieving their healthcare goals by being the most important link in the process of healthcare delivery. Throughout history, the military nursing service has played indefatigable role in stepping into times of crisis. They are deployed in various armed forces establishments to care for the COVID-19 patients, apart from the peace and war establishments which deliver routine medical care.
The work put in by the nurse in COVID-19 crisis is a powerful and practical demonstration of the potential that nurses possess to address big healthcare challenges.
The military nursing service is an integral part of armed forces medical services. Apart from providing nursing care to one of the largest armies of the world, officers of military nursing service in India have proved to be the frontline warriors in today's scenario who have taken on the responsibility of combating this pandemic willingly. The pandemic has thrown unprecedented challenges for healthcare professionals and nurses in particular across the country, stretching the healthcare system to never-seen limits. As the battle becomes long-drawn, military nursing service officers continue to perform their duties tirelessly in this crisis situation. Bureau Report, DD India.
And talking about the nursing profession, Soumya Santosh, a 30-year-old Indian hailing from Idukki in Kerala, was among those killed in a rocket attack by Palestinian militants in Israel. She was working as a caretaker to an elderly woman at a house in Ashkelon, which borders the Gaza Strip. Union Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan condemned the violence and called for restraint by both sides. He said the family of the Indian nurse has been assured of all possible assistance. And Israel's ambassador to India, Dr. Ron Malka, spoke to the family of Soumya Santosh. In a tweet, Dr. Malka extended condolences on behalf of Israel to the family of the Indian nurse. He expressed deep pain for Soumya Santosh's 9-year-old son, who lost his mother at such a young age and will have to grow up without her. Right, and joining me is a very special guest, Ms. Harvinder Kaur, Chief Coordinator of Continuing Nursing Education Department and Faculty in the College of Nursing, Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Medical Sciences at Dr. Ram Manohar Loya Hospital, New Delhi. Ms. Kaur, first of all, may I wish you, your colleagues in India and around the world on the occasion of the International Nurses Day, because without you, we won't have come this far in our fight against COVID-19. So may I thank you and your colleagues from the bottom of our hearts. Now, these are very trying times for all of us. How has the past year been for you and your colleagues at the front line of India's fight against COVID-19?
Thank you very much for calling here, and I really wish to all my nursing colleagues for the entire nation a very happy International Nurses Day, because last year, as we all know, WHO has posed that the nurses for years. That was really true. Because since last year, we all are battling with this coronavirus, and we all know that we are in the clutches of a global disaster, that is coronavirus disease pandemic, and really which has posed a major challenge in the healthcare system across the world. And we are at war with the invisible enemy, and that has endangered the health and life of the people beyond our imaginations and brought a lot of stress and really a that uncertainty in our life, and these unforeseen circumstances have made us think, introspect, and make prompt decisions as healthcare professionals. As a nurse, we are committed to serve the society, and it's the biggest challenge we face today because we have to do the care and cure of the patients, and we have to do the duties as a big challenge in our life. There are certain challenges which we are facing since last year. We are facing these kind of challenges as the nursing force. There is a shortage of the nurses, there is a problem of the resources, problem of so many things. Last year, we were not so much prepared for that kind of pandemic disaster because that came first time in everyone's life, whether they are doctor, nurses, any healthcare profession, and for the whole and for the entire world.
Indeed. Ms. Kaur, I was just curious to ask you, some people are calling it the once in a century pandemic. Have you in your long career seen anything like this before?
No. I am telling you, nobody has seen this kind of pandemic in their entire life, because as we all have read that in the history, it was in the 1918 or 1920, there was a one pandemic. We have seen this kind of, and we have read about this history. But in entire my life, professional life, I haven't seen this kind of pandemic. I have seen the disasters. I have worked in the disasters, like in bomb blast, like in several disasters I have worked. But I haven't seen this kind of, because in this year, last year we were not prepared. Here, in this year we were prepared, but this third wave has drenched all of us because we all are emotionally drenched because of this pandemic.
Absolutely. It must have definitely taken an emotional toll on all the nursing professionals in India and around the world. And in conclusion, Ms. Kaur, very quickly, what would you like to tell young people who might want to take up this profession going forward, to the young people in India and around the world? Nursing as a profession, your message to them?
Yes, nursing is a very beautiful, very passionate profession. Because when I started my profession, I didn't feel that was so much of passionate. But as the life goes on, as the time passes, it is a profession, it is a really passionate profession. And I must give a message to my younger nurses who are budding nurses for the world, that nurses, they are doing this, as we all know, they are doing this selfless job. They are with the dedication, they are battling with their own life and with the life of the epidemic like this. They are really a true warrior, and their sacrifice will bring definitely a smile on the face of the entire world.
Absolutely.
And really, I wish my nurses, they should and they will, definitely they will determine to fight against this pandemic, and they will definitely give a significant contribution to the health of the society, and they will be remembered forever. So I wish my junior nurses and the entire whole nursing profession, they must choose this profession with great passion.
And why not?
Because this is the only my message and my blessings to my juniors, to my my small nurses.
Ms. Harvinder Kaur, may I thank you once again for making time for us here at DD India, and may I thank you and your colleagues around the world on the occasion once again of the International Nurses Day. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. Right, moving on for now, the Cabinet has approved a production-linked incentive scheme for the advanced chemistry cell battery storage with an outlay of 18,100 crore rupees. It will help in the production of 50 gigawatt hours of the ACCs, which are the new generation of advanced storage technologies that can store electric energy either as electrochemical or chemical energy and convert it back to electric energy as and when required. Now, Minister Prakash Javadekar briefed the media about it on Wednesday.
PLI for
advanced chemistry cell battery storage will be of 18,100 crores. It will help production of 50 gigawatts of battery storage, and we expect 45,000 crore rupees of investment, foreign as well as within the country.
Now, Minister Javadekar said the ACC battery storage manufacturers would be selected by a transparent, competitive bidding process. He said the scheme would invite domestic and foreign investments and greatly support the self-reliant India initiative of the government.
2,000 rupees per kilowatt hour, इस रेट से ये इंसेंटिव मिलेगा, ये बिडिंग भी होगा इसके लिए, और जो अच्छा सेल करेंगे, जो अच्छा एफिशिएंसी बढ़ाएंगे और जो लोकलाइजेशन ज़्यादा करेंगे उसको ये ज़्यादा फायदा होगा। ये इसलिए मैंने कहा कि ये मेक इन इंडिया का भी आविष्कार है और ये आत्मनिर्भर भारत का भी दृश्य है, परिदृश्य, और इसमें देशी विदेशी निवेश सबका स्वागत है।
In other news, the BJP on Wednesday gave a clarification to the allegations made by the Delhi government on the supply of COVID-19 vaccines. BJP national spokesperson said that till 11th May, around 663 million vaccines have been exported by India, of which around 107 million have been sent for aid, while the remaining have been sent as per liability, which was compulsory.
कल तक 11 मई 2021 तक लगभग 6.63 करोड़ वैक्सीन, 6.63 करोड़ वैक्सीन के डोजेज जो हैं वो एक्सपोर्ट किए गए थे, हिंदुस्तान के बाहर भेजे गए थे। इसको लेकर काफी घमासान रहा कि आखिर ये क्यों भेजे गए। हिंदुस्तान में वैक्सीन की कमी थी, इनको भेजना नहीं चाहिए था, अपने बच्चों को पहले वैक्सीन करना चाहिए था, बाद में लोगों को देना चाहिए था। देखिए, ये जो वैक्सीन बाहर भेजे गए वो दो कैटेगरी में भेजे गए हैं। जो पहला कैटेगरी है जिसमें लगभग 107 लाख अर्थात 1 करोड़ 7 लाख आसपास वैक्सीन भेजा गया है, यह एड के रूप में भेजा गया है। एड मतलब मदद, एड मतलब ग्रांट के रूप में भेजा गया है। ग्रांट के रूप में, मदद के रूप में, एड के रूप में मात्र 1 करोड़ वैक्सीन ही भेजा गया है। बाकी जो वैक्सीन भेजी गई है, 84% जो वैक्सीन भेजी गई है, लगभग 5 करोड़ से अधिक, वो लायबिलिटी के रूप में भेजी गई है।
Now, leaders of 12 opposition parties have written a joint letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi with certain suggestions that they urge should be implemented on a war footing to tackle the pandemic in the country. Some of the key suggestions in the letter included: take a look at these graphics. Central procurement of vaccines from all available sources, global and domestic. Free universal mass vaccination across the country to be started immediately. Invoke compulsory licensing to expand domestic vaccine production. Spend budgetary allocation of 35,000 crore rupees for the vaccines. Utilize all PM CARES funds for mitigating COVID-19 in the country. Stop construction under Central Vista project and divert that money for procuring oxygen and vaccines. Free distribution of food grains to the needy. Give all jobless at least 6,000 rupees per month. Repealing centre's new farm laws. Now, meanwhile, the centre has been proactively taking all steps on a war footing to control the second wave of the pandemic. Now, it says all possible measures are being undertaken to increase vaccine production. Free vaccination drive is already underway in the country, and vaccines free of cost are already being dispersed to the states by the centre. The PM CARES Fund approved procurement of 150,000 OxyCare systems. Continuous efforts are being made for availability of oxygen across the country. The railways oxygen expresses continue to ensure availability of oxygen supplies, and the Indian Air Force aircraft are flying in essential aid from abroad and at home without break. The Indian Navy is also engaged in the mission to fulfill oxygen requirements. Global aid continues to arrive from overseas, and Food grains are being distributed under the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana. The central government's continuous emphasis is on job creation. There have been several rounds of talks on agricultural laws as well. Right, moving on, the Indian Army Chief General M.M. Naravane is on a 2-day visit to the White Night Corps in Jammu and the forward areas including Akhnur, Rajouri and Naushera. Accompanied by Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, the Northern Army Commander, he was briefed regarding the prevailing security situation, operational preparedness, COVID-19 management and the assistance provided to the veterans and the people of the region in the fight against the pandemic. General Naravane interacted with troops deployed in the forward areas and appreciated the sustained efforts of all ranks of the White Night Corps towards maintaining the sanctity of the line of control, as well as wholeheartedly assisting the civil administration, veterans and civil population, especially in border areas, to combat the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. He also visited the military hospital at Jammu and reviewed the medical preparedness for COVID-19. He appreciated the vital critical care being provided by the doctors and healthcare workers and awarded them appropriately. In foreign news, Israel said it will kill 16 members of the Hamas military wing in an airstrike on Gaza on Wednesday, and Palestinian militants rained rockets into Israel as global concern mounted over their most intense hostilities in years. At least 53 people have been killed in Gaza, including 14 children, with 320 people injured since violence escalated on Monday. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel has declared a state of emergency in Lod City and threatened to pound Hamas as cross-border fighting escalates between Israelis and Palestinians. Meanwhile, the UK says cycle of violence must stop in Israel and Gaza. At least 43 people have died in some of the worst violence in years between Israel and Palestinians living in the enclave of Gaza. Palestinian militant group Hamas fired a barrage of 130 rockets at Israel's capital Tel Aviv on Tuesday. This allegedly in retaliation for an Israeli strike which destroyed a tar block in Gaza. However, the Israeli military said it targeted militants in Gaza in response to earlier rocket attacks. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh said Israel had quote-unquote ignited fire in Jerusalem and was responsible for the consequences. He said if Israel wants to escalate, the resistance is ready. If Israel wants to stop, the resistance is ready for that too. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said militants in the Gaza Strip will pay a heavy price for their belligerence.
We are at the height of a campaign. Since yesterday, the Israeli Defense Forces executed hundreds of attacks on Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. We targeted commanders, we hit many of their quality targets. Hamas will be getting blows it didn't expect.
Netanyahu declared a state of emergency in the Israeli city of Lod after clashes broke out there. The international community has urged Israelis and Palestinians to end the escalation. A UN spokesperson said UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is saddened by the events and that the United Nations is working to de-escalate tensions.
He is deeply saddened to learn of the increasingly large numbers of casualties, including children, from Israeli airstrikes in Gaza and of Israeli fatalities from rockets launched from Gaza. The Secretary General's thoughts are with the families of the victims. Israeli security forces must exercise maximum restraint and calibrate their use of force. The indiscriminate launching of rockets and mortars towards Israeli population centers is unacceptable.
For its part, the United States called on all sides to exercise restraint. The Arab League condemned the Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. It called on the international community to move urgently to stop Israel from escalating the situation. Meanwhile, dozens of people demonstrated outside the US Foreign Ministry building in Washington, D.C. in support of Palestinians. In London, a large group of pro-Palestinian demonstrators took to the streets waving Palestinian flags and chanting slogans, while a smaller group of pro-Israeli demonstrators was witnessed on the side of the road. Hundreds of demonstrators also gathered outside the Israeli consulate in Istanbul, Turkey on Tuesday for a third night in a row in protest against Israeli actions. Bureau Report, DD India. And it's a wrap, but news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Don't forget, wear a mask, wash your hands and always practice physical distancing. Remember, it is better to be safe than sorry. Now is not the time to be adventurous. Now is the time to be abundantly cautious. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.